We all take modern cars for granted. The luxury, the performance, the safety, the speed, everything. But little do we wonder how the first car was born. And today it's time for me to show you just that. It all started in the 1880s when a set of engineers, I must say brilliant engineers, who started working on the internal combustion engine. And strangely, they were all based near Stuttgart in Germany. The first one was Otto, who came up with the engine, the internal combustion engine. And this is an engine which is about 2.4 liters in capacity. It is one of the biggest one, made in 1880, which is the first one. And it pumped out all of 1 brake horsepower. The problem with this engine was that it was too big, too heavy, produced too little power, and it had to be attached to a gasoline line. So another individual by the name of Daimler started working on another engine. And this is the result.
Nicholas August Otto might have been the first one to crack it and make an internal combustion engine, but because of all these demerits, it became unlikely that it would ever power a motor car. And at the same time, there were 3 other people who were actively working on the idea of moving people without the use of horses. In other words, mechanically through an engine that would power the wheels. And Daimler was one of them.
And to improve on what Nicholas Otto did, Daimler made this engine. As you can see, this is one simple engine, a single-cylinder engine, but where it did improve matters is simple. It produced 0.1 bhp more. The output of this engine is 1.1 bhp as compared to the 1 bhp engine that Nicholas Otto made. And this sounds good too.
And the engine was light too, and it was called the grandfather clock engine because of the way it looked.
But it was time for Mr. Daimler to try out the engine on a frame and to give birth to the first motor car ever made. Time to see the chassis on which he mounted the engine.
Daimler was based near Stuttgart and he was collaborating with Maybach to put the invention onto a frame with wheels and ensure that this engine indeed powers a vehicle. The result was this.
And this was the frame where the world's first internal combustion engine, which was light, which was usable, was mounted on this frame, and this was called a motor car. But actually, this is the world's first motorcycle, as you can see. And the advantage of this is that this was very maneuverable, it was easy to ride, and used the engine very effectively, transferring all the power to the wheels. But then it had a downside also. As you can see from the saddle, the rider's backside got a bit too hot. So this was discontinued and further improvements were worked on. This was a design which was worked on by both Daimler as well as Maybach. So it was the first collaborative effort on their part to put an engine on road.
The first drive, or shall we say ride, was only of 3 kilometers and the person literally on the hot seat. And we say hot seat because the engine was mounted right under the seat and it did heat up the seat, was none other than Daimler's son. The year was 1885 and it was until another year that they would invent another vehicle which looked more like our modern day motor car than a motorcycle.
Maybach and Daimler continued their collaboration and they improved on the 2-wheel motor car that they had first made. Incidentally, as I said, the world's first motorcycle. And this was the result, the first 4-wheel motor car. And incidentally, they used the same engine which Daimler had made in 1884. But this was a huge improvement. This world's first motor car generated a top speed of 18 kilometers. But the problem with it was the steering. It was difficult to turn the car. So further improvements were called for, and there was another gentleman by the name of Karl Benz who was also working on this in nearby Mannheim.
Daimler might have invented the first vehicle with 4 wheels, but not able to corner with stability was a big problem. The steering angle had to be reworked, and while this was being thought out, another man burst on the scene, Karl Benz from Mannheim, a short distance from Stuttgart.
Actually, there were 4 individuals who were working together at the same time to develop a motor car. Daimler and Maybach made the world's first 4-wheeler motor car. Nicholas Otto made the first internal combustion engine, but Karl Benz was not left far behind. He made this. He developed an engine of his own, and he made the chassis, and he made the first motor car, which is a 3-wheeler actually. But the advantage of this is that this is much easier to steer.
History, with its hindsight, will tell us that it will be another 30 years or so before Daimler and Karl Benz would collaborate to bring together some of the best engineered products that will be the benchmark for the industry. But that is for the future and another story. This is how the first motor car looked, a far cry from what we drive today.
This, as you see, is the story of the evolution of a motor car. What I have with me here and what I showed you previously is not a replica. This is the original one, although this is a very close replica, the original one being kept in Munich. But you can see from humble beginnings to where automobiles have really landed up in over 125 years of use and sometimes even abuse.